Prologue. A 12-year-old boy climbs Mount Helios, desperate to prove his worth to his cruel father, who has always called him weak and illegitimate. Trapped on a ledge during a storm, he struggles to climb down but slips, barely saving himself. As lightning nears, his father's mocking voice fills his head, driving him into rage. When a bolt strikes him directly, the shock sends him tumbling from the mountain. As he falls, pain rips across his back and he discovers enormous black wings sprouting from his shoulder blades, slowing his descent. He crashes to the ground but miraculously survives. When the wings vanish moments later, he realizes no trace of them remains, only torn fabric and a smooth skin. Fearing discovery, he hides his transformation, aware that in his world such unnatural traits mark one as an aberration destined to be hunted or condemned. In Chapter 1 month after Jericho's death, Farron struggles with grief and insomnia while suspecting she carries his child. She visits a doctor to confirm her pregnancy, hiding the truth that Jericho was a supernatural being. In the waiting room, she experiences strange visions, walls peeling, shadows crawling, and a nurse attacking her before everything resets as if nothing happened. During the examination, Dr. Shine finds her urine test negative, but insists on an ultrasound. The screen flickers with static and shadows, revealing no fetus but an unidentified mass outside the uterus. He warns it could be ectopic and recommends termination, but Farron refuses. She believes the child is Jericho's and beyond human understanding. Determined to protect the pregnancy, she rejects the doctor's diagnosis, convinced that what grows inside her is not an illness, but the last remnant of her lost otherworldly love. In Chapter 2, Evie wakes in a tavern after spending the night with a mysterious blonde stranger who reveals himself to be an angel. Desperate to escape Nightshade and believing he can help her cross the veil, she agrees to betray Van Croix, Jericho, by revealing his location at Blackwater Cathedral. Bitterness drives her decision, as she still resents Jericho for abandoning her for Farron. The stranger confirms Jericho's dual nature as half angel, half demon, and coldly states that both Jericho and Farron will share the same fate. Though uneasy, Evie convinces herself that Jericho will not be harmed and gives up his whereabouts. When she asks the angel's name and if he can truly restore her soul, he smiles before driving a dagger into her throat. As she dies, he reveals his true purpose, not to save souls like hers, but to destroy them. In Chapter 3, centuries earlier, the young Baron secretly follows his father, Lord Perceptia, through a snowy forest to a secluded hovel. Peering through the window, he witnesses his father engaged in a depraved act with his own sister, revealing monstrous black tentacles and scales emerging from his body. Horrified, the boy flees into the woods, realizing his father is not human. Rage and revulsion fuel a vow to one day kill him and protect his mother from his cruelty. As dawn breaks, the boy accidentally splits a massive tree with his bare fist, confirming his own unnatural strength. Discovering a wounded mouse, he instinctively heals it with lightning-like energy, revealing powers beyond comprehension. When he returns the mouse to a mysterious dark-haired girl feeding animals in a clearing, his father and henchman Alaric appear, catching him spying. Lord Perceptia confronts his son, demanding to know what he has seen. In Chapter 4, Farron dreams of a nightmarish asylum called Infernum, where demonic figures torment her. A mysterious woman drinks her blood, and a black tentacled monster with glowing red eyes attacks. She awakens in terror beside Jericho, realizing she's safe but still shaken. Her sickness returns. She vomits black liquid and hides the bruises left from their intense reunion. When Jericho questions her nightmare, she mentions a woman named Sirissa, a name he recognizes as that of a long-dead seer tortured by the Pentacrux for dark magic. He explains that Infernum is a real asylum in Nightshade where lost souls are trapped and hunted by demons. As they discuss her pregnancy, he warns that carrying a half-angel, half-demon child strips her of heaven's protection, leaving her vulnerable to infernal realms. Their moment turns grim when Jericho senses sentinels have crossed into the mortal plane, forcing them to flee immediately. In Chapter 5, the young Baron is imprisoned and tortured by Bishop Venable under his father's orders after refusing to confess what he witnessed in the woods. Bound and starved, he endures brutal lashings meant to purge the evil from him but refuses to speak, knowing confession would condemn him. Defiant, he taunts the bishop, vowing silence despite his father's accusations. Afterward, His cousin Dristan tends to his wounds, warning him of the bishop's cruelty and the danger of defiance. Alone, the Baron wrestles with shame and confusion, disturbed to find pleasure entwined with pain and power. While reflecting on his suffering, he discovers he can heal his own injuries through touch, channeling the same strange lightning that once saved a wounded mouse. Realizing his back is fully restored, he is left in awe and fear of his growing supernatural abilities, unsure whether they mark him as blessed or damned. In Chapter 6, Farron and Jericho prepare to cross the veil through a ritual of near drowning meant to transport them safely to Nightshade. Terrified of water because of her father's abuse, Farron struggles to trust Jericho, but he soothes her through intimacy, using pleasure to keep her calm as he submerges her. Midway, Jericho changes. His eyes glow red, horns emerge, and he nearly kills her before she bursts through the water into the other realm. They awaken in the sea below Blackwater Cathedral, attacked by a monstrous sea serpent called a Zillogen. Jericho slays it, but is badly wounded. Reaching shore, they enter the cathedral where the staff welcomes them back, unaware of Farron's illusion of clothing. Later, in private, Jericho heals his wounds with fading power and admits his demon side is overtaking him. Fearing he could hurt her again, he demands distance, leaving Farron heartbroken and alone. In Chapter 7, Jericho leaves the cathedral wearing an eye patch over his ruined eye and feeling burning markings on his arm that recall holding Farron underwater. He saddles Onyx and rides to Misty Hollow, where he draws a Kretkalat's summoning circle and calls Trezor. Trezor appears white-silvery-haired, a Noxarian lord who once served the Knights of the Infernal Order with Jericho. Jericho asks who claims Farron's soul. Trezor reluctantly says it is Claudius Van Croy, Jericho's father, and warns the council cannot act against such power and refuses to help him. Trezor suggests closing the Eradi portal would free many, but says the closure is a vast undertaking. Jericho realizes he must restore his wings and Vitilum before confronting his father. He steels himself to hunt Claudius despite the risk and departs after Trezor seals the portal, driven by fury and purpose to save Farron and reclaim her soul. In Chapter 8, the young Baron Jericho awakens fully healed from the brutal flogging he received in the Undercroft. His cousin Dristan is horrified to find the wounds gone overnight, but Jericho warns him to stay silent or face dire consequences. Summoned by his mother, Jericho visits her and admits he healed himself by will alone. She warns that such power will be seen as heresy, and that he must hide it, enduring his punishments to appear human. She explains that his father, Lord Percepsia, fears his abilities and that Jericho's nature is darker and more dangerous than he realizes. Calling it a test of faith, she instructs him to suppress his powers and emotions. She also tells him he will be guided by Solomon, the church organist, who will teach him control. Though confused and resentful, Jericho reluctantly promises to obey her and surrender his will to faith. In Chapter 9, Jericho, tormented by rage and visions of his father claiming Farron's soul, struggles to control his dark impulses. Knowing Farron is 4 months pregnant, he refrains from binding her to him until after childbirth, fearing it could harm the baby. Seeking distraction, he discovers a newspaper announcing the execution of Vashago, a powerful demon warrior once sent to kill him. Realizing Vashago's strength could be useful, Jericho decides to free and bind him to protect Farron. Meanwhile, hallucinations and violent urges worsen, evidence that his demonic half is taking control as his angelic Vitalum fades. He recalls his past addiction to Seraphica, a drug made from angel blood that once kept his darkness at bay but refuses to relapse. Determined to find Farron's father to restore his wings, Jericho plans to travel to Velthrock to save Vashago and ensure Farron's safety, even from himself. In Chapter 10, Farron follows the sound of Jericho's organ playing and finds him in the cathedral. Despite his warnings to keep their distance, she approaches him and they talk about his plan to leave Nightshade to find her father and hire a bodyguard, Vashago, a demon once sentenced to death, to protect her. Jericho insists the curse binding Vashago will ensure her safety, but Farron feels the choice is another wall between them. He gives her a celestial dagger and teaches her how to defend herself, explaining how to kill demons and angels. Their attraction overwhelms them, leading to an intense sexual encounter that turns terrifying when Jericho's demon half emerges, his body transforming as he loses control. Farron blacks out and awakens to his guilt and horror. Fearing he might harm her again, Jericho leaves to find Vitilum, the angelic lifeblood, to stabilize himself before his darkness consumes them both. In Chapter 11, the young Baron travels with his mother to meet his new mentor Solomon, while his father is away. During the carriage ride, his mother reveals that his father cannot kill him because their blood is cursed. If one dies, so does the other. She warns him that his abilities are meant to protect life, not destroy it, and forbids him from harming his father. When they arrive, Solomon greets them with unnerving awareness despite being blind. The Baron, defiant and skeptical, is ordered to chop wood and repair a roof as part of his training. After challenging Solomon's apprentice Sorth to a sword fight, the Baron loses when mysterious sensations distract him, hinting at supernatural manipulation. Solomon later demonstrates his own power by making the coachman walk through solid walls, confirming his abilities. Shaken but intrigued, the Baron is told to return for further lessons in uncovering his hidden strengths. In Chapter 12, Jericho rides through the night towards Stygian Falls to obtain Seraphica, a forbidden drug made from angel blood. Weakened without his wings and desperate to control the darkness within him, he knows the tonic is the only way to stop himself from harming Farron or their unborn child. He reflects on his crimes against heaven and his hatred for his father, Claudius Van Croy, who now owns Farron's soul. At the underground nexus beneath the village, Jericho buys the last vial of Seraphica from an apothecary dealer, consuming it immediately despite disgust at his relapse. The drug's effects dull his pain but distort his senses, and as he leaves, haunting voices and visions taunt him, hinting that his demonic side is resurging. Returning to the cathedral, Jericho watches Farron sleep, torn between love and fear, realizing the Seraphica won't be enough to keep her safe. In Chapter 13, Farron wakes from a nightmare and hears a voice urging her to save him. Startled by movement in her room, she calls for Anya, who reassures her it was just a dream. During their conversation, Farron accidentally reveals her pregnancy, now 4 months along, and asks Anya to keep it secret. When Farron feels the baby moving, Anya is unable to sense anything, deepening Farron's unease. Afterward, Anya mentions Jericho left that morning, supposedly to hire new staff, and subtly questions where Farron had been during her long absence. Farron deflects, hiding the truth about Nightshade. Later, she goes outside to visit the cathedral's 3 massive guardian dogs, Cerberus, Nero, and Fenrir, but they act strangely aggressive, growling and advancing on her as if they no longer recognize her. Panicked, Farron narrowly escapes inside, realizing something within her, or around her, has changed the creature's instincts toward her. In Chapter 14, the young Baron returns from his lesson with Solomon only to be abruptly summoned by his father's henchman Alaric to meet Bishop Venable at the monastery. Despite protests, he's forced to go immediately. During the carriage ride, Alaric admits he'd kill the Baron if ordered, confirming his father's ruthlessness. At the monastery, the Baron witnesses horrific scenes in the infirmary, deranged patients and a desperate woman begging for salvation. Bishop Venable claims the church saves the possessed, yet when he shows the Baron the catatonic Lord Fletcher, the boy suddenly convulses and raves about demons devouring souls. The bishop insists these punishments purge evil, but the Baron doubts his words. Venable then reveals another sinner, a mutilated criminal, and finally leads the Baron to the Undercroft where Drestan, his cousin, is strapped naked to a cross and tortured. Horrified, the Baron realizes his cousin's punishment is tied directly to him. In Chapter 15, Jericho travels to Velthrock Prison Tower to recruit help protecting Farron. Using an old favor owed by the warden, he gains access to Vajago Camoran, a powerful but dangerous demon awaiting execution. Jericho offers Vajago freedom in exchange for guarding Farron and her unborn child against all threats, including Jericho himself. Though hostile, Vajago accepts, and Jericho uses a blood oath to bind his life to Farron's. During the rescue, they encounter a sharp-tongued human prisoner named Vesper, secretly a Draakon, a rare demon slayer linked to celestial powers. Recognizing her potential value, Jericho frees and binds her to Farron as well. With both Vajago and Vesper cursed to share Farron's fate, Jericho removes their control bands and escorts them from the prison. Despite his mistrust, Jericho knows he needs their strength to protect Farron from both heaven and hell as the child's birth approaches. In Chapter 16, Farron watches Jericho return with 2 new arrivals, Vajago, a dangerous ex-prisoner bound to guard her, and Vesper, a young woman assigned as her attendant. Suspicious yet compliant, Farron questions Jericho, who explains Vesper is a Draacon, a demon slayer who willingly bound herself to protect Farron. Their conversation turns intimate and tense as Jericho reveals his plan to publicly claim her through a forbidden mating ritual to protect her from his father, Claudius Van Croy, who holds her soul and would kill their unborn child to hurt him. Farron refuses the idea of a public claiming, leading to an emotional clash that exposes Jericho's growing instability and obsession. Later, shaken and alone, Farron experiences a terrifying vision. Black markings moving beneath her skin and a mysterious voice urging her to save him. The vision vanishes when Vesper visits, introducing herself as Farron's new attendant. In Chapter 17, the young Baron Jericho witnesses his cousin Dryston tortured by Bishop Venable and his father, Lord Van Croy, for refusing to confess what he saw. Under unbearable pain, Dryston finally reveals Jericho's secret that his wounds miraculously heal overnight. The revelation enrages the bishop, who orders Jericho stripped and tested. When the priests find no scars on his body, they strap him to the cross and brand his back with hot iron, determined to expose his supposed demonic nature. Jericho endures the pain in silence, remembering his mother's warning that others should fear him. Afterward, he's locked in a cell for observation, where he meets a mute village boy named Willem. That night, shadows fill the cell, transforming Jericho's skin into black scales and sprouting horn-like bumps on his forehead. He witnesses a demonic force attack Willem, realizing the darkness within him mirrors his father's infernal curse. In Chapter 18, Farron reflects on Jericho's proposal to bond publicly and turns to studying angel numerology for answers. She realizes that the repeated numbers she's been seeing, 777 and 137, foretell irreversible change, death, and rebirth, which she believes symbolize her impending transformation into a Cambion. Her thoughts are interrupted when she spots her cat, Kamal, walking precariously along the cathedral ledge. Trying to rescue it, Farron nearly falls to her death but is pulled back inside by Vajago. Furious, he reminds her that because of their shared curse, her death would doom him as well. Their tense exchange reveals more of his past. Vajago was once ordered to kill Jericho by his former master Zorith, but instead killed Zorith and was imprisoned. Later, Vesper arrives with Kamal and warns Farron to be wary of Vajago. During their conversation, Vesper's shadow, Osiris, mentions seeing a mysterious blonde spirit following Farron. In Chapter 19, Jericho visits Solomon after recovering from his wounds. Solomon tests him with a perfect apple that hides a black serpent inside, proving that evil often disguises itself as beauty. The creature's appearance confirms Jericho's fears about demonic corruption. Solomon explains that the creature came from Eredi, a shadow realm tied to hell, kept open by Jericho's father, Claudius Van Croy. He reveals that Jericho's infernal nature comes from his father, but his mother's purity tempers it. Solomon warns that resisting darkness requires recognizing evil's disguises and mastering his impulses. On his way home, Jericho passes through the woods and finds the mysterious girl with starlit eyes, Lustina, singing in a clearing. Her beauty captivates him until her mother appears, revealing herself as the midwife who delivered Jericho and warning him to stay away. Despite her words, Jericho resolves that Lustina, born of the light, will one day be his. In Chapter 20, Jericho studies a grimoire and learns about the Metlazan, ancient healers who could invoke angels and demons using a divine language, but the text mysteriously erases itself. Turning the page, he reads about Rurax, a painful condition binding demons to their mates through uncontrollable desire that can lead to accidental soul consumption. Realizing he suffers from it due to his growing demonic side, Jericho decides to restrain himself each night with diablish steel chains, the only metal capable of containing a demon's urges. He orders Vajago to chain him and, if necessary, kill him should he threaten Farron. Their tense exchange exposes how much Jericho has changed, willing to die to protect her. Later, Jericho confronts Cerberus for showing hostility toward Farron, warning the dog to stay away and acknowledging his love for her. The chapter closes with Jericho preparing to leave in search of Farron's father. In Chapter 21, 4 days pass since Vesper and Vajago's arrival, and Farron grows increasingly isolated from Jericho, who locks himself away studying. Their emotional distance worsens her loneliness until one night she hears Jericho's agonized cries. Investigating, she finds him chained to his bed in torment. Vashago stops her from entering, explaining Jericho suffers from Rurux, an uncontrollable demonic desire that only Farron can ease. Despite Vashago's warning, Farron enters Jericho's room, overwhelmed by his pheromones. Her attempt to soothe him turns into an intense sexual encounter as Jericho loses control, partially transforming, his horns emerging and skin darkening. Caught between fear and desire, Farron submits under his influence, realizing his demon half has fully surfaced. In his frenzy, Jericho demands to claim her through a ritual bite that would permanently bind them, and in her dazed, enchanted state, she tilts her head and surrenders to him. In Chapter 22, Farron wakes to find Jericho in full demonic form, his fangs dripping black venom as he thrusts into her uncontrollably. Panicked, she speaks the command Stray Veratu, which miraculously restores his humanity, retracting his horns and returning his blue eyes. Jericho explains that his swollen state occurs before a claiming ritual meant to trap his mate, and that her interference triggered it. They remain physically joined until his body calms, forcing them into uneasy closeness. Though frustrated, Jericho admits he misses her, and they share a tender moment before falling asleep together. Farron later wakes to find he's carried her back to bed. When she confides in him about recurring visions of a mysterious blonde woman, Jericho listens with concern. She reveals that Vesper's imaginary friend, Osiris, also saw the blonde near her, deepening the mystery. Jericho promises to investigate and reassures Farron before urging her to rest. In Chapter 23, the young Baron meets Solomon deep in the forest, where the old man reveals the boy's hidden ability to communicate with birds through a supernatural bond called vinculum. Though skeptical at first, the Baron obeys Solomon's instructions to speak to the ravens with his mind, and to his shock, they respond, obeying his every mental command. Solomon explains that these ravens are familiars, servants of his kind, capable of slipping between the world of the living and the dead. Awestruck, the Baron experiments with controlling their flight, realizing the power he wields. When he presses Solomon for answers, the old man admits he is a mortal descendant of the Draken, god-born hunters sworn to protect humanity. The Baron asks if Solomon intends to kill his father, but Solomon replies that darker forces exist, then tells him the most dangerous of them all is the Baron himself. In Chapter 24, Jericho reflects on how close he came to claiming Farron the night before. One bite would have bound her to him forever and left her vulnerable to his father's control. His anger simmers as he struggles with guilt and restraint. When Anya reports that Vesper has gone missing, Jericho worries she may have returned to the mortal realm with dangerous knowledge. After she leaves, he returns to studying his grimoire, uncovering details about unbound souls, spirits stripped violently from their bodies, capable only of haunting or compelling others. He recalls witnessing such a soul once, Sarissa, the blonde woman haunting Farron's dreams. Her connection to Farron now seems disturbingly possible. Suddenly, Jericho experiences a vision through his raven cicatrix, revealing Farron's father alive but frail in Dreadmire. Resolving to find him, Jericho prepares to leave under nightfall, determined yet wary, knowing his absence will leave Farron in Vashago's care. In Chapter 25, the young Baron and Soreth trek through the mountains in search of Wolfsbane, a poisonous flower Solomon needs to create Larua, an elixir that masks vitality by making one appear dead. During their climb, Soreth reveals his celestial heritage as a pure-blooded Elysiumarian descended from seraphs and teaches the Baron how to properly use his wings. Inside a nearby cave, the Baron discovers the Wolfsbane and a litter of black puppies beside their dead mother, who had poisoned herself. When he feeds the pups his blood, Soreth identifies them as hellhounds and begins killing them, claiming they are demons destined for evil. Outraged, the Baron defends the remaining three, using lightning to disarm Soreth. Naming them Cerberus, Fenrir, and Nero, he vows to protect them and raise them as his loyal companions, marking his first act of defiance against the rigid, brutal views of his world. In Chapter 26, Farron takes a bath, trying to ease her anxiety when a mysterious woman appears in her room, revealed to be Kamel, her cat in human form. Kamel warns her of a dark aura in her future, a coming danger linked to both revenge and love. She reveals the truth of the Blood Moon Curse. Only Farron and one other have survived it by conceiving a child with an angel. Kamel identifies the true source of the curse, Letifer, the ancient, dark-winged one. Jericho's ancestor who rules the realm of Eridie. If he awakens, he will hunt Farron. Though pregnant, Farron learns her survival still endangers the 5 realms. Camille vanishes after urging her to stay alive. Moments later, Jericho arrives, revealing Cicatrix has found her long-lost father alive outside Dreadmire. As Jericho leaves to retrieve him, Farron anxiously awaits their return. In Chapter 27, Farron struggles to sleep, her mind fixed on Jericho's dangerous journey to Dreadmire. A shadow appears at her window, and when an intruder slips inside, she panics but cannot scream. Before she can act, Vashago intervenes, seizing the stranger, a young angel named Soreth, who claims to know Jericho and insists he has a message only Jericho can hear. Unconvinced, Vashago locks him in the dungeon despite Farron's pleas. Once alone again, Farron locks the window but senses another presence in her room. Trying to calm herself, she feels a disturbing movement in her belly, what seems like a fully formed arm pressing from within. Terrified and uncertain whether it's real or imagined, she resolves to visit Katrina the next day for answers about her pregnancy and the unsettling changes she's beginning to feel. In Chapter 28, Jericho's journey to Dreadmire is interrupted when his Rurax, a demonic heat that drives him to claim his mate, overwhelms him. Struggling against the tormenting urges for Farron, he collapses in the woods and is soon confronted by 3 succubi who sense his weakness. They attempt to seduce him, offering to ease his pain through sex, but Jericho resists and provokes them with a deadly insult to Lilith, their creator. Enraged, the succubi attack, clawing and biting him until their venom burns through his body. When they finally leave, Jericho's agony turns into forced self-release as he tries to relieve the pain. A surviving succubus then reappears, taking Farron's exact form, and tries to seduce him again, claiming she can feel his desire and that she is what he truly wants. Though tormented by temptation, Jericho realizes the danger as she advances toward him. In Chapter 29, Farron awakens from a vivid nightmare of Jericho having sex with a brunette woman in the woods. The vision feels so real that she wakes up nauseated and vomits a strange black liquid. Shock and jealousy twist inside her as she questions whether Jericho could have truly betrayed her, recalling his struggle with desire the night before. Though she tries to reason that it was only a dream, doubt gnaws at her, feeding her anger and insecurity. Convinced she's being irrational but unable to shake the feeling, she resolves to visit Katrina the next day for guidance about her emotions and her pregnancy. Staring out at the stars, Farron tries to convince herself that Jericho wouldn't betray her, that despite everything, he still only wanted her. In Chapter 30, the Baron washes his wounds in the river after being brutally whipped by Bishop Venable. His cousin, Dryston, approaches, trying to reconcile after betraying him by revealing his healing ability. The Baron refuses forgiveness, accusing Dryston of weakness and ending their friendship. Hiding afterward, the Baron witnesses Dryston secretly reveal brown wings and attempt flight, proof they share the same angelic heritage, before the wings retract in frustration. When Dryston leaves, the Baron travels deeper into the forest to visit the abandoned cabin where he hides the surviving Hellhound pups, Cerberus, Fenrir, and Nero. There, he unexpectedly finds a raven-haired girl playing kindly with the pups, confirming they pose no threat. Mesmerized by her beauty, he nearly reveals himself but hesitates, watching from hiding until she suddenly vanishes, leaving him both intrigued and unsettled by her mysterious disappearance. In Chapter 31, Jericho battles the uncontrollable urges of Rurax as a succubus disguised as Farron tempts him to give in to his desires. Despite his resistance, his demonic instincts take over, his horns emerging and his body transforming. The succubus provokes him, mimicking Farron's voice and body perfectly, but Jericho warns her to run before losing control. Consumed by his predatory rage, he chases her through the woods and catches her, only realizing too late that he has killed her. Horrified, Jericho recalls a past killing in Stygian Falls where another woman's death had created the glowing Nightshade flowers. Struggling with guilt, he recognizes that his inner beast had rejected the succubus because she wasn't truly Farron. As the dead demon's sisters sense her death and begin to cry out in fury, Jericho flees into the night on his horse Onyx, heading toward Dreadmire. In Chapter 32, Farron struggles with exhaustion, nausea, and paranoia after her disturbing dream and a nighttime intruder. At breakfast, Vesper reappears, revealing she's catatonic in the mortal realm, her body trapped by a demon's hex while her spirit roams Nightshade. Feeling comforted by her honesty, Farron opens up about her pregnancy and decides to visit Catriona for answers. Vajago reluctantly escorts her, with Vesper joining. On the way, Farron learns about Vajago's powers and his hatred of angels. At the bookstore, Katrina reveals she is Lostina's mother and confirms Farron's cursed pregnancy. She gives Farron the name of a healer, Kazura, who might help. After the meeting, a mysterious fog engulfs the street, separating Farron from her companions. An old woman emerges, touches her belly, and attacks, only for Vajago to appear and slice off her hands before she bursts into flames. He tells Farron the creature was not human. In Chapter 33, Jericho follows the Vendaris River, haunted by guilt over killing the succubus and bearing a new soul mark on his skin. He reaches Dreadmire, where he searches for Augustus, Farron's estranged father, hiding near the walls of the fallen city. Jericho convinces him to talk and learns that Augustus discovered the Omni, an ancient sigil connected to the Metlazan, a secret order of healers who can harness the lifeblood of dead angels from the celestial realm, Etheriasu. The Omni's power, however, can only be activated by them. Augustus admits he's being hunted by something from Netherium for an unpaid debt, and refuses Jericho's offer of sanctuary with Farron, giving him a ward to deliver instead. Moments later, fire demons emerge from Augustus's campfire, dragging him into the flames before Jericho can save him, leaving only his screams echoing through the forest. In Chapter 34, the Baron lies in his prison cell, enduring the lingering pain of Bishop Venable's repeated tortures. Pretending to suffer while secretly suppressing his healing ability, he notices movement in the shadows and is startled when a mysterious woman appears, Cerisa of Solitaire, known in legend as the Widow of the Woods. Bearing scars and a gold collar, Cerisa claims she was imprisoned for love, saying her younger lover was taken from her and cursed. When the Baron accuses her of preying on boys, she deflects with unsettlingly sensual and graphic confessions, hinting at sadistic desires and dark pleasures tied to pain and blood. Disturbed, the Baron orders her to leave. She retreats into the shadows, and when he checks the corner, he finds no sign of escape, only a lingering chill, leaving him to question whether Cerisa was real, a vision, or something supernatural haunting his cell. In Chapter 35, Jericho returns to Blackwater, burdened by the death of Farron's father, who was killed by fire demons after refusing rescue. At the cathedral, Jericho finds Farron gravely ill, feverish, and coughing black liquid after an encounter in town with a hooded woman who touched her stomach. Suspecting the attacker was a Vocatori, a summoner, Jericho calls for help using a summoning ritual with Kazura, a healer recommended by Catriona. Kazura diagnoses that Farron carries an unbound soul inside her, a restless, possibly malevolent spirit that somehow entered her body. As she performs a ritual to extract it, black smoke rises from Farron's mouth before fading, and her fever drops. Struggling against his growing demonic urges, Jericho orders Vajago to guard Farron and watch Kazura, then prepares to restrain himself with chains before the Rurax overtakes him. In Chapter 36, Farron wakes in the middle of the night feeling unnaturally energized and overwhelmed by desire after recovering from her mysterious illness. Still drawn to Jericho, she ignores Vajago's warning and visits his room, finding him chained but in the throes of his demonic transformation. When he urges her closer, he breaks free and attacks, pinning her against the wall in a violent predatory rage. Her safe word fails to stop him, confirming that he's fully consumed by his demon side. Before Jericho can harm her, Vajago intervenes, paralyzing him and saving her. Terrified but defending Jericho, Farron argues with Vajago, who warns her that Jericho may one day kill her. Shaken, she returns to her room, where a stabbing pain grips her stomach. As she lies down, she begins hearing a baby crying and grows paranoid that Kazura, the healer, might be trying to steal her unborn child. In Chapter 37, the Baron suffers another brutal whipping at Bishop Venable's hands, resisting the urge to heal himself. The mysterious woman, Cerisa of Solitaire, reappears in his cell, her body covered in fresh burns and bruises. She soothes his wounds with mud and claims to know his father's secret. Lord Perceptia is searching for a girl who can free him from a hidden curse. Cerisa reveals she once loved someone his father cursed and that the collar around her neck can only be removed by killing him. She urges the Baron to help her, saying only he can reach Arity, a realm where his father's power is greatest. When he refuses, Cerisa seduces and magically paralyzes him, forcing him to mix pain and pleasure until he climaxes in shame. Enraged, he nearly kills her but stops himself, declaring he is nothing like his father. She calls him a liar. In chapter 38, Jericho awakens chained and disoriented, relieved to learn from Vajago that Farron is unharmed after his demonic outburst. Vajago used Vitailum drawn from the captured angel Sorth to stabilize him. Grateful yet unsettled, Jericho checks on Farron, who is resting peacefully before heading to the dungeons to confront Sorth. The angel warns him that the sentinels know Jericho has returned from Ex Nihilo and that both angels and demons are searching for the Metlazan, a human woman capable of unlocking the Omni, granting access to divine energy, Vitailum, from Etheria Zu. Sorth claims the Metlazan was born in Nightshade and is likely hidden near Obsidian Mountain, in Infernum, where souls of Arity linger. He urges Jericho to help find her before the realms fall into chaos. Jericho agrees to imprison Sorth safely, while secretly plotting to locate the Metlazan himself. In chapter 39, the Baron travels with his mother to visit Solomon, though he hides his torment over the abuse inflicted by Cerisa. His mother, unaware of what occurred, mentions that Cerisa is now imprisoned and reveals dark truths from the past. Cerisa once prophesied that Lord Presepsia's son would cause his downfall, prompting the Baron's father to attempt infanticide. Later, the woman was discovered responsible for the deaths of several boys, confirming her depravity. After his lesson with Solomon, where he practices healing and bonds with a raven named Cicatrix, the Baron returns through the woods to feed his hidden hellhound pups. There he finds the raven-haired girl Lustina playing with them. Haunted by shame and memories of Cirisa's assault, he feels unworthy of Lustina's purity, his self-loathing deepening as he realizes the corruption Cerisa planted within him has begun to shape how he sees himself. In chapter 40, Farron wakes during the night, troubled by stomach pain and anxiety over Jericho's safety. Finding his room empty, she searches the cathedral until she discovers him in his office. Jericho reveals the devastating truth: her father is dead, his soul claimed by fire demons after making forbidden deals. He gives her a protective ward her father left behind, and when she breaks down, Jericho comforts her, confessing he would follow her into hell if needed. Their grief turns physical as they make love, but in the midst of passion, Farron inexplicably stabs him with a letter opener, her mind blanking to darkness. Jericho heals quickly and realizes an unbound soul may have possessed her. Horrified, Farron recalls signing a strange document at a doctor's office, granting the entity access. Jericho summons Sorth to help identify and banish the soul, fearing it could endanger both her and their unborn child. In chapter 41, the Baron encounters Sorth hurrying toward the village and follows him to witness a rare and brutal event, a soul stripping. At the monastery courtyard, Cerisa of Solitaire is brought naked, bloodied, and bound before a crowd for execution. Bishop Venable declares her guilty of witchcraft and crimes against children. Cerisa laughs at the accusations and prophecies that all will die when her beloved Letifer awakens. Sorth explains to the Baron that soul strippings separate body and soul, often masked by the release of dogs to conceal the horror as the victim's skin tears away. He reveals Cerisa once served Letifer, the bringer of death who sleeps in Arity. When the bishop commands the hounds unleashed, they tear into Cerisa as she smiles at the Baron before screaming in agony, only after Lord Presepsia, the Baron's father, whispers something in her ear. In chapter 42, Jericho reflects on Cerisa's execution, remembering how she remained silent under torture until his father whispered to her. Now pacing his office with Sorth, he searches for a way to free Farron from the unbound soul possessing her. Sorth explains that the entity grows stronger by feeding on its host's energy, and that only two methods can banish it, either a painful soul stripping or killing the host. Jericho rejects both options, but considers attempting to reason with the entity. Their discussion turns to Cerisa's past. Sorth reveals she lured and killed boys, consuming their souls and organs to preserve her youth. Her victims were found hollow and bloodless, their eyes completely red. Before Jericho can question further, Anya bursts into the room in panic, telling him something is wrong with Farron. Jericho immediately abandons the study and races upstairs to her room. In chapter 43, Farron awakens to eerie whispers echoing inside her mind, too fast to understand. Shadows flicker across her walls, forming writhing, human-like figures that move in disturbing rhythmic motions. As the voices grow louder, pressure builds in her head, and she sees a black, oozing mass spreading across the ceiling. From it, a limb and then a face press outward, mirrored by movements inside her stomach. Terrified, she feels the same gaping mouth beneath her hand, realizing something unnatural stirs within her. The whispers fuse into one commanding voice, chanting, "Banish the innocent from thy womb." Pain racks her body, followed by blinding light and silence. When she opens her eyes, the mysterious blonde woman from her nightmares appears beside her and touches her abdomen. Farron screams as intense cramps hit and dark red blood gushes from between her legs, her body overtaken by the entity inside her. In Chapter 44, the Baron, young Jericho, refuses his cousin Drystan's invitation to attend another witch execution, then visits his hidden hellhounds in the forest before heading toward Solomon's cabin. The peaceful day twists when the sky blackens and the forest decays around him, signs of Eridai, the cursed realm. His father, Lord Perceptia, appears and tells him he is becoming, revealing that their bloodline carries the curse of Letifer, allowing them to survive in this world that feeds on Vitilum. The Baron witnesses horrifying illusions of Cirissa, Lustina, and even Solomon in torment. When his father unleashes monstrous Mortunoth creatures, Jericho discovers his power, casting lightning to destroy them, but too late to save Solomon, who dies and then resurrects as one of the monsters. Forced to defend himself, Jericho kills his corrupted mentor with lightning. As the darkness fades, he collapses in grief. In Chapter 45, Farron wakes in agony to find Jericho beside her, only to realize she has miscarried their baby. Denial turns to devastation as he confirms the child is gone. Overwhelmed by grief and guilt, Farron blames herself, believing the loss is divine punishment for defying heaven to bring Jericho back. He comforts her, explaining that reversing time cannot undo the loss and that her suffering is not her fault. Their conversation turns to the looming threat of Letifer and Jericho's plan to negotiate with the Noxarians in Ariokbury to protect her soul from his father. Desperate and broken, Farron lashes out at Jericho physically, venting her anguish as he urges her to release her pain. He endures every blow without resistance, assuring her that her pain is his own. When her fury fades to exhaustion, she collapses into his arms, their shared grief binding them in silence. In Chapter 46, Jericho prepares to travel to the dungeons, haunted by memories of loss. Farron's miscarriage, his father's cruelty, and his past with Lustina. He recalls an encounter with the resurrected Cirissa, who vowed vengeance against his bloodline and foretold future suffering. In the present, Vashago gives Jericho a witch's call stone linked to Venefica, a reclusive sorceress capable of manipulating souls, though her help would come at a steep cost. Determined to save Farron from his father's claim on her soul, Jericho plans to bargain with the Noxarians. He visits Sorth, revealing his belief that Cirissa's soul now inhabits Farron, feeding on pregnant hosts. Though skeptical, Sorth agrees to accompany him to the Obsidian Mountains, believing they seek Venefica. Secretly, Jericho intends to drug and deliver Sorth to the Noxarians as a trade for Farron's soul, risking everything to save her. In Chapter 47, Jericho departs for the Noxarians' fortress with Sorth, concealing his plan to trade the angel for Farron's soul. He bids a painful goodbye to Farron, leaving her under Vajago's protection, then uses Cat's Claw to drug Sorth during their journey. Upon reaching Ariokbury, Jericho presents Sorth to the Noxarian Council, led by Corgeras, offering the pure Elysiumarian scholar in exchange for Farron's release from his father's claim. The demons, tempted but wary, refuse the deal, citing their treaty with Eridi and the risk of war with Lord Perceptia. Jericho's fury mounts when they also deny his request to formally bond with Farron, which would have protected her womb from future claims. As he's dismissed, Jericho discovers Bishop Venable, now calling himself Barkiel, has informed the council of his lost powers, undermining his leverage. Enraged but powerless, Jericho leaves the fortress, his plan failed. In Chapter 48, the Baron, young Jericho, returns home after 2 years at Cavendale, summoned by news of his mother's failing health. Lady Perceptia greets him warmly, though she hides her frailty. His father, Lord Perceptia, immediately asserts control, forcing Jericho to resume training with the Pentacrux and weekly sessions with Bishop Venable. During their meeting, his father admits he takes pleasure in Jericho's suffering and demands obedience in the coming war for Eredi. Furious, Jericho flees to the woods, discovering his childhood hideout abandoned and encountering Drystan with Lustina, now a grown woman serving Bishop Venable. Their reunion turns tense. Jericho insults her, clashes with Dryston, and cruelly has him punished. Later, his mother confides the truth. His father feeds on her blood, draining her life, and that Alaric secretly serves as a spy against him. As she weakens, she warns Jericho that war is coming and he must choose a side. In Chapter 49, Jericho and Sorth reach the Obsidian Mountains seeking Venefica, the ancient witch. Inside her eerie cave, Jericho kills a lurking creature before confronting the witch, who admits to creating Farron's doppelganger and reveals that Cirissa of Soldathair possesses Farron's body to use her against Jericho's father. Venefica agrees to banish Cirissa but demands Letifer's heart, the core of Verity, as payment. She gives Jericho a black elixir to administer to Farron, warning that it will place her in a death-like state for 3 nights, permanent if he fails to deliver the heart. On returning to Blackwater Cathedral, Jericho confides in Vashago, revealing his plan to retrieve Letifer's heart and kill his father, closing the portal to Eredy. Farron rests peacefully, unaware of the bargain made for her life, as Sorth is locked away once more in the dungeon. In Chapter 50, Farron awakens to strange whispers and the sound of a crying baby. A hallway appears where her bedroom wall should be, pulling her into a surreal, dreamlike labyrinth. Believing the cries belong to her lost child, she follows the voice despite warnings from Vesper, who suddenly appears with her. When Vashago tries to reach them, a magical barrier seals them inside as the world transforms into gray stone. Forced to move deeper, they encounter a monstrous corpse-like creature and barely escape into a room only to witness Vesper's childhood trauma. Through a window, Farron sees Vesper as a child named James, abused by Pentacrux clergy and forced to renounce her identity. Horrified, Farron breaks through the glass and frees her from electroshock restraints, whispering her true name to bring her back. As Vesper mutters, "Say your name," Farron helps her up, realizing the labyrinth is alive and personal. In Chapter 51, Jericho learns from Vashago that Farron and Vesper have vanished into a wall within the cathedral. Inspecting her room, he discovers a decayed section of wall, forming a magical portal, the entrance to Infernium's labyrinth. Realizing his father's behind it, Jericho dons his old knight's armor to protect his Vitilum and prepares to follow them. When Sorth is found missing from his cell, Jericho suspects a deeper betrayal. As he and Vashago head out, they are intercepted by Adamus, a sentinel who reveals shocking news. Farron is the Metlazan, a prophesied being who carries divine power capable of accessing the Vitilum in Aetherius. Sorth, he warns, has joined the Ariakai, making him dangerous. Adamus insists on accompanying Jericho and explains that Farron's soul cannot be claimed by demons, though she can still be imprisoned. Using heavenly chalk, Adamus opens a portal to Infernium's entrance, and they prepare to enter. In Chapter 52, Farron and Vesper continue through the shifting labyrinth, pursued by unseen creatures. Taking refuge in another room, they find themselves inside an eerie forest under a starless sky. Exhausted and shaken, Vesper reveals her tragic past. Adopted by a cult known as the Pentacrux, she was tortured and abused for her identity until escaping and being trained by Donovan to hunt demons. Her vengeance on her abusers led to her imprisonment in a psychiatric hospital secretly run by the same cult. Farron comforts her, suggesting she use astral projection to reach Jericho for help, but Vesper fails, unable to leave Infernium. They realize the labyrinth's doors shift and may be guiding them toward something greater, each numbered room a clue or test. When the door vanishes behind them, they see gossamer threads stretching into the dark forest, forcing them to move deeper into the maze. In Chapter 53, young Jericho, the Baron, visits his dying mother, who reveals the truth of his heritage. He is half Elysiumerian, descended from celestial blood, and destined to become a sentinel, a guardian of the heavens. She urges him to resist his father's darkness, protect Lustina, and never reveal his true nature. After her death, Jericho is summoned by Bishop Venable and his father, Lord Perceptia, to the Undercroft. There, he finds Alaric, his mother's ally, tortured and accused of treason. His father commands him to prove his loyalty by executing the man. When Jericho refuses, Perceptia threatens Lustina's life, forcing him to comply. Jericho drives the dagger into Alaric, earning his first kill and a glowing mark that sears into his forearm. His father praises him coldly, declaring it the first of many murders, a moment that seals Jericho's tragic descent toward darkness. In Chapter 54, Farron and Vesper follow gossamer threads through the forest and discover a small straw hovel where all the strands converge. Inside, they find a blindfolded woman in white, the Widow in the Woods, attached to webs that hold a mummified child. Hearing whispers to save him, Farron cuts the cocoon open and frees the boy from her recurring dreams. The vibrations awaken the monstrous widow, who screams and attacks, trapping them in the hovel as the exit vanishes. The creature's webbing ensnares all three, choking Farron and dragging Vesper down. As Farron loses consciousness, darkness overtakes her. When she wakes, the widow lies dying, her threads severed and blood pooling around her. Vesper reveals Farron killed the creature in a violent frenzy. Shaken, Farron cuts Vesper and the boy free, and together they flee the blood-soaked hovel, determined to escape deeper into the labyrinth's nightmare. In Chapter 55, Jericho, Vajago, and Adamus travel through a portal to reach Infernum, though Adamus can only take them within a mile of the asylum. Along the way, Adamus reveals devastating truths. Lustina was Metlazan pregnant when she was killed by Bishop Venable, and her soul was sent to Infernum after death. Enraged, Jericho attacks Adamus, blaming him for her torment, but learns that the gods abandoned the Metlazan, leaving them trapped in rebirth cycles. Adamus confesses Jericho's mother stayed behind to protect Lustina and warns that Farron, her reincarnation, now carries dangerous knowledge of the Omni. At Infernum's gates, Adamus gives Jericho a vial of Vitilum to destroy Letifer's heart and urges him to act quickly before the portal closes. Jericho and Vasago enter the asylum, descending into the gray labyrinth beneath it. Inside, Jericho hallucinates Lustina's suffering before Vajago pulls him back to focus on saving Farron. In Chapter 56, Farron, Vesper, and the rescued boy, Elian, continue deeper into the labyrinth, emerging into another corridor marked 445, showing they've progressed further. Elian, resembling a young Jericho, speaks little, adding to the mystery of his presence. As they press on, they are ambushed by demonic creatures, including a decayed version of Cerberus. Using Jericho's dagger and the techniques he taught her, chest, throat, skull, Farron kills one of the beasts, proving her growing strength. After escaping into another room, Farron is suddenly drawn into a terrifying vision of her childhood home. There, she sees her father confessing to accidentally killing her, before transforming into a demonic version of Jericho, who assaults and tries to drown her. Snapping out of the illusion, Farron vomits black fluid as Vesper finds her and helps her escape. They regroup with Elian, exiting through a door marked 519, continuing their descent into Infernum. In Chapter 57, Jericho and Vajago continue through the labyrinth until they find a door leading to a vision of Farron's childhood home. Inside, Jericho explores alone and discovers a younger version of Farron in her bedroom, acting seductively and claiming she knows he's always watched her. Her behavior tempts Jericho, but he senses something is wrong as darkness spreads across his hands. When Vajago interrupts, Jericho realizes the girl isn't Farron but a demonic illusion meant to lure him. The false Farron transforms into a succubus, and Jericho kills it with his dagger, her body dissolving into black dust. Looking out the window, he and Vazago see hundreds of Mortunath, the ravenous creatures of Infernum, swarming toward the house. Realizing they've been discovered, the two prepare for battle, knowing the labyrinth is becoming more dangerous the deeper they go. In Chapter 58, Farron, Vesper, and Elian encounter Soreth in the labyrinth. Though suspicious, Farron follows him into the next chamber, a cave opening onto a beach, where she sees her mother, who ignores her and embraces Soreth. The illusion reveals a hidden truth. Farron's mother once plotted with Soreth to deliver her to him, believing it would lead to her redemption. Enraged, Farron accuses Soreth of betraying Jericho on the night of the blood moon. He admits he is Ariakai and reveals that Farron herself is the Metlazan, a healer capable of channeling all Vitalum, which makes her both powerful and hunted. When Farron's mother attacks her, Soreth intervenes, but his disguise fades, drawing Mortunath demons to them. As chaos erupts, Farron loses her locket, and Vesper drags her and Elian to safety through another door, while Soreth is overwhelmed and left behind to die in the cave. In Chapter 59, Jericho and Vajago defeat the remaining Mortunaths surrounding Farron's childhood home and continue through the labyrinth, exhausted but determined. Jericho vows to kill his father Letifer, though secretly plans to keep the demon's heart intact to use as payment for Venefica to free Farron's body from Cerisa. Entering the next chamber, they find Soreth dying, half devoured by demons, and Jericho discovers Farron's locket nearby. Suddenly he sees a vision of Lestina, who reveals she had been pregnant with his child when she died, his son, born of her soul within Infernum. Lestina explains that this place was once a temple for the ancient gods, and has become hell for the Metlazan. Consumed by pain and regret, Jericho listens as Lestina begs him to destroy Letifer's heart to free their son. When she transforms into a Mortonaut, Jericho kills her and collapses in anguish. In Chapter 60, Farron, Vesper, and the boy enter a ruined monastery courtyard filled with white roses and a fountain. When Vesper collapses, Farron discovers she's been bitten by a Mortonaut. Despite drinking from the fountain, Vesper's condition worsens. She burns with fever, hears voices, and realizes she's turning into one of the creatures. Begging Farron to kill her, she reminds her of their promise about Myrmecophily. Through tears, Farron follows Jericho's killing method: chest, throat, skull, and Vesper's body dissolves into white dust. Grief-stricken, Farron weeps until the boy urges her to keep going. They leave through the door marked 623 and return to the cold, silent corridor. As they move forward, she finds one last door, numbered 777. Hearing a baby crying beyond it, the same sound that lured her into the labyrinth, Farron realizes it may be the labyrinth's center and forces herself to continue despite her fear. In Chapter 61, Jericho and Vajago push deeper into the labyrinth through doors that mirror memory. Entering a dungeon corridor, Jericho confronts an illusion of Farron chained and violated, a scene engineered to provoke him. Vajago explains the labyrinth manipulates fear and guilt to trap intruders and insists the tableau is false. Jericho reacts violently, but Vajago forces him to drink the last vitylum, which steadies his rage and restores clarity. Once calm, Jericho acknowledges the deception and forgives Vajago's harsh intervention. They reaffirm their purpose: locate and rescue Farron from the labyrinth's center before Cereza or Letifer's forces claim her. Jericho steels himself, aware the maze preys on memories and that time is limited. Resolved, they move onward together, prepared to fight Mortonaut and face illusions as they head toward Infernum's heart to free Farron and retrieve the heart. They hurry, knowing every delay strengthens the enemy and diminishes their chance completely. In Chapter 62, Farron encounters Cereza before entering the final door, where she finds herself back in her cathedral bedroom. A cradle holds a black-haired baby with stardust eyes, her son. Jericho's father, Claudius Van Croix, appears and reveals she is the Metlazan, capable of freeing him from his prison by granting access to the vitylum in Aetherius. When Farron refuses, Claudius kills the baby and demands she speak the words to awaken Letifer. A surge of pain floods her mind as he invades her memories, revealing visions of torture and Lestina's suffering. A glass sphere containing Letifer's pulsing heart appears, proving the labyrinth's true purpose. Claudius attacks her, but the boy, Elian, intervenes, calling Farron Mama before collapsing from injury. Realizing he is Lestina and Jericho's child, Farron names him Elian Jericho Van Croix and swears she will die before freeing Claudius or unleashing Letifer. In Chapter 63, Jericho orders Vajago to get Farron to safety, gives him the summoning chalk and Venefica's vial to administer after escape, and vows to force his father to reveal an exit. He opens a door into Farron's bedroom where Claudius, now a tentacled monstrosity, has Farron captive. Jericho severs a tentacle and fights, but is grabbed, thrown, and restrained. Chains lift him to the ceiling, his armor torn away, leaving his vitylum exposed. Claudius taunts him, explains the labyrinth is a projection tied to Letifer's heart, and that destroying the heart would also kill Claudius. Jericho attempts to reach the heart sphere, but is immobilized. Bishop Venable, Barkiel, appears and splashes a Bone and Mortonaut elixir, the same used on Jericho's mother, onto him, burning and weakening him. Claudius boasts he tracked Lestina to Infernum and tormented her. Venable reveals new implements of torture. Jericho is left chained, depleted, facing the choice between freeing Farron and preserving the heart that binds Letifer. In Chapter 64, Farron struggles against Vajago, refusing to leave Jericho behind, but he forces her through a summoning portal to Kazura's chamber. Realizing the room is another illusion of the labyrinth, Vajago gives her Venefica's vial, warning it will induce a death-like state only reversible by delivering Letifer's heart. When Kazura reveals herself as a Mortonaut, Vajago orders Farron to flee. She escapes, finds Elian bitten by Cereza, and then returns to room 777 where Jericho hangs tortured by Claudius. Claudius attacks, torturing Farron with a heated blade while Barkiel taunts Jericho. Vazago returns, mutilates Claudius, and urges Farron to run. Enraged, she kills Barkiel, then heals Jericho by reciting the Omni, restoring his wings and power. Claudius captures her again and forces her to swallow a potion that expels Sirrus's spirit, which dies. Exhausted and near death, Farron watches Jericho reborn with black wings before she collapses into darkness. In Chapter 65, Jericho awakens fully restored, his power renewed, and finds Farron lifeless beside an empty vial. Seeing her mutilated by Claudius ignites his rage. Claudius threatens that killing him will awaken Letifer, but Jericho refuses to yield. Channeling his Vitilum, he unleashes glowing insect-like entities that consume Claudius alive. Jericho takes Letifer's heart and vows to bring Farron back. Vasago and Elian arrive. Jericho frees Vasago from his life-binding curse before the heart begins to pulse violently, signaling Letifer's awakening. Outside, a massive army of Mortonath gathers. Jericho sends Vasago to protect Farron and the heart while he stays behind to fight. Taking flight, he burns through the demon horde with lightning and fire until Letifer himself appears, armored, winged, and powerful. In a brutal aerial battle, Jericho wounds him but is overwhelmed, crashing to the ground as Letifer vows to imprison him and bind his life to the heart. In Chapter 66, Vasago carries Farron's unconscious body and Letifer's heart through the endless labyrinth with Elian following him. Pursued by Mortonath and new skeletal spider-like demons, he ducks into a prison chamber filled with ogre-sized monsters. Weak but fighting, Vasago kills several before more arrive. Bishop Venable appears, stealing Letifer's heart from Elian. Vasago pursues him through corridors into a church-like hall overlooking a courtyard swarming with thousands of Mortonath. He lays Farron down as the bishop demands the heart's destruction, warning all realms will perish otherwise. Before Vasago can act, new demons burst through the doors. Holding them in paralysis, he's forced to divide his strength as the bishop throws the heart over the balcony. Vasago catches it midair but is threatened when the bishop aims to kill Farron and take Elian. When Elian attacks the bishop, Vasago shifts his focus, and the Mortonath below consume Letifer's heart. In Chapter 67, Jericho battles Letifer in a brutal clash, channeling his lightning power until Letifer collapses in a burst of red smoke, leaving behind a demon-faced key. The Mortonath bow to Jericho, acknowledging him as their master. Realizing the heart has been lost, he reunites with Vasago, who carries Farron's lifeless body and Elian. As the labyrinth collapses, monstrous hellborn goat demons pursue them, forcing Jericho and Vasago to flee through the asylum's halls. They barely escape through the closing portal, and Jericho destroys Infernum in a massive explosion. Outside, he demands that Adamus revive Farron, but when Adamus refuses, Jericho flies to Venefica's lair, offering her the key to Eridai in exchange for Farron's life. Venefica accepts, reviving Farron with Jericho's blood, warning she'll awaken changed in 3 days. Before vanishing into flames, she reveals Syriza was her sister, the witch who once loved Letifer. In Chapter 68, Farron awakens in Jericho's room realizing she has been resurrected after he traded the key to Arati to the witch Venefica in exchange for her life. Though alive, she struggles with guilt and trauma from the labyrinth, Vesper's death, Claudius's assault, and haunting visions of Infernum. Jericho comforts her, promising protection and urging her to use the phrase Stre Veritu when lost. Farron sees her healed reflection, renewed by Venefica's elixir mixed with Jericho's Vitilum, and learns her scars remain from celestial steel. Seeking to purge her pain, she begs Jericho to make her forget, and they share an intense, soul-binding union. Their connection forms Amralock, the joining of souls, making them eternally bound. As the act ends, Farron's body begins to change, cold and paralyzed, while Jericho reveals she is turning immortal, her humanity giving way to a new, powerful form tied forever to him. Epilogue 1. Barkiel escapes the collapsing labyrinth and the burning asylum, barely surviving near Mount Obsidia. Wounded and weak, he plans to reach Ariokbury for safety, but his reprieve is short-lived. A towering, cloaked stranger approaches, Gabriel, whose presence radiates divine power. When Barkiel tries to flee, Gabriel confronts him, revealing he knows his true identity as Bishop Venable and accuses him of horrific crimes against a woman named Catriona. Gabriel declares that he has come out of retirement to deliver retribution, informed of Bartiel's sins by Farron Ravenshaw herself. As realization and terror consume the bishop, Gabriel unfurls enormous white wings, confirming his celestial nature. Pinning Bartiel to the mountain wall, Gabriel promises there will be no escape, no redemption, and no mercy, signaling that the corrupt bishop's judgment has finally arrived at the hands of an avenging angel. Epilogue. 1 year later, Farron lives peacefully with Jericho and Elian in Nightshade. Elian trains to control his inherited powers while recovering from his trauma. Farron honors Vesper by tending a field of daisies and discovers she can heal small creatures, an ability likely gained through Jericho's Vitilum. Vajago remains nearby as protector, though he denies affection for a mortal stable hand. Jericho and Farron share a playful, passionate bond strengthened by their eternal connection. When Elian shows them a glowing butterfly, he reveals that a man named Augustus, Farron's deceased father, speaks to him telepathically, telling stories of the past. Jericho suspects this is possible through Elian's mixed angelic and demonic nature. Farron clings to hope her father still exists. Together, she and Jericho vow to cherish their eternal life, accepting love as both light and shadow, a force powerful enough to transcend death and redefine eternity.